Hello, Culture Brief listeners. Connor here. This past week, Micah and I had the pleasure of joining the Denison Forum podcast alongside doctors Mark Turman and Ryan Denison, who y'all know they've both been on Culture Brief before, and we discussed a massive passion of ours, sports. Specifically, we dove into how to respond faithfully to the role that sports plays in our culture. And it was a fun and insightful conversation. We talked about the ESPYs, the new reality of NIL deals in college athletics, the rapid rise of sports gambling, youth sports interfering with church, and so much more. I hope you enjoy this bonus episode as we apply biblical perspectives to a sports-obsessed world. And we'll be back Thursday with a new episode of Culture Brief. Until then, have a good week.
Welcome. This is the Denison Forum podcast. I'm Mark Turman, the host for today's conversation. We're going to pick up a topic that hopefully is relevant to you. We're going to talk about the intersection and sometimes collision between faith, sports, and our culture. So this is going to be a roundtable discussion between me and three of my friends and coworkers. You've heard before Dr. Ryan Denison, senior editor for theology here at Denison Forum. He's been a part of our conversations before. He's joining us again. We also have Connor Jones. Connor, welcome to the podcast. Connor is the director of what we call performance marketing. Can you explain that, Connor?
Yeah, I could. It would take all day because I'm still trying to learn it myself, Mark.
Yeah, so we may be the organization that created a thing called performance marketing that will change the world. But we're not even sure exactly what all that is, but we think Connor's doing a really great job of it.
Appreciate that.
Connor is also the co-host of what we call Culture Brief, another podcast from Denison Forum that you may have caught up to. If not, we're going to tell you a little bit more about that. His co-host is Micah Tomasella. And I have to really focus sometimes to say that last name.
A lot of syllables,
Micah.
Mark.
Lots of syllables.
A lot of syllables.
But an
Tomasella.
incredibly great last name.
Thank you, sir.
By the way.
Thank you, sir.
And Micah helps us in our development area. Your official title is?
Senior Advancement Officer.
Senior Advancement Officer, which really sounds cool.
Yeah, it is cool.
But Micah manages a ton of relationships with people that relate to our organization. Some of you know that we are a donor-supported ministry. And if you're one of those people, we're grateful for you. And you might have had a conversation with Micah already. If not, you'll probably have one soon. But we're grateful for you and for all of those that help us to do this work, to share God's truth in a way that is full of love and compassion as well as conviction. And we're glad that you're along with us for this conversation. But guys, we want to welcome you again into this conversation on Denison Forum. But I was going to say you host the sister podcast. It really should be the brother podcast.
Yeah.
Probably little brother podcast.
It's the little, we won't say little brother. We just say brother.
Yeah.
But you guys tell us about Culture Brief. You've been doing this for several months now. It's been well received. It's growing. Tell us what your goals and purpose are and what Culture Brief is all about.
Yeah, it's kind of what it says in the title. We're trying to brief the audience on what's happening in culture. That includes politics, just news headlines. That includes technology, entertainment, Hollywood, movies, TV shows, and of course, that includes what we're talking about today, sports. And we try to just bring a biblical perspective to all of the big things happening in the news and headlines that week across culture.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't say it any better myself. Ultimately, we believe that if you listen to this podcast once a week, we release every Thursday morning. If you listen to it for those 40, 45 minutes, we really can give you a good rundown and breakdown of all of the biggest topics that are happening in the news, giving it to you in bite-sized chunks, but also helping us all apply the headlines to our lives. God, what would you have me do about that? How can I be a part of the solution? How can I be a part of change? And we also just have a ton of fun. We do a lot of polls for our audience, talking about restaurants and celebrities and just all kinds of different things. So we definitely love engaging with our audience. It's just been a ton of fun and such a blessing for Connor and I to be able to do it. Connor and I have been very close friends, best friends for, over 10 years now. So being able to host this podcast together has been really, really fun.
Yeah,
Yes.
lots of banter and jabs at each other for sure.
Yeah, that was about as nice as I've been to Connor in a long time. That was really, really nice of me, what I just said.
Well, we're glad that you polished it up, here on the sophisticated Denison Forum podcast.
There you go.
And we hope y'all will check that out. Again, one of the distinctives, there's actually 3 podcasts in Denison Forum world. You may, if you're a follower of Dr. Jim Denison's daily article, you may be receiving that as an email, and that's great. You can also get it in a podcast version. just go and subscribe to the DA or the Daily Article podcast, and you can get the Daily Article that way. Those of you who do read or listen to the Daily Article know that Dr. Ryan Denison, who is the son of Dr. Jim Denison, writes weekly for the Daily Article at least once a week, and sometimes more often than that. And so you're probably familiar with his work. Ryan, great job on the DA today. We're recording on the 17th, and so Ryan had a great Daily Article today that you can check out on the pro-life movement, some stuff there. But a little bit of a distinction, 3 podcasts coming from Denison Forum. We have the Daily Article podcast. We have the Denison Forum podcast, which typically takes an issue like we're doing today in sports and does a deep dive on it in some way. We often have guests come on and take us into kind of an interview format. They might have written a book on this or some other type of work, and we go deep dive into that. That's a lot of what we do on the Denison Forum podcast. And then Culture Brief, as the guys just described, they will touch on a lot of different stories that are happening in a week's time and give you some understanding of that along with spiritual and biblical applications. So that's kind of how the podcasts are unique. And so we're glad to get to do this stuff together. We collaborate with each other and help each other to figure out how to do good work to serve you well. And we hope that today does that. I want to set, guys, a little bit of the context. Help me if I get this right. As I said, we're recording on June the 17th, which at least in the United States, to me, is the slowest sports day all year long.
July 17th.
Well, whatever day follows the MLB All-Star Game.
Yep.
And last night, the ESPYs. I'll tell you all a little story. Got home last night after full days of work, and my wife's chilling out on the couch after dinner. She turns on the television, and there's an award show. And she starts paying attention, which she doesn't usually pay that much attention to award shows. But she's like, "What is this?" And I said, "It's called the ESPYs." And I said, "They celebrate people in sports, and they give out a bunch of awards, like the best play of the year, all kinds of stuff." Ryan probably knows more about this, or you guys do, than I do. And she goes, "I can't believe you're not watching this." And I'm like, "I got to tell you, I don't like it. I've watched a little bit in past years, and it's not my thing." So they put the ESPYs right behind the MLB All-Star Game for a reason, because there's not much else going on. Football training camps haven't opened yet. Baseball's turning the corner. If there's anything going on in the soccer world, I'm unaware of it. Some people are going to say, "Well, wait a minute, the British Open is starting." Well, that's true, but that's across the pond. So we'll get around to that. We're going to touch on that in a moment. All I'm saying is that if you're listening to ESPN or your favorite sports talk show, they're probably struggling to find something to say. You guys agree with that? Don't agree with that? Am I on the right track here?
Well, I do think it's the prime season for hot takes.
Yep.
Because there's no games to talk about. They just figure out the most outlandish things they can possibly say, the worst predictions you could ever hear, and then they just spend hours talking about it.
Yep.
It really is the dry season. I can't wait.
Big top list season, like top 10 quarterbacks going into the new year, all of that, or the hot take season, is Dak's legacy tarnished, type of conversations where they've just got nothing to discuss. Yeah, it's slow.
Well, I mean, and also we're very close, 5 days away from rookies reporting to all the NFL mini camps and stuff like that in cooler weather temperatures, mainly like in California and other places. And so there's just all those football headlines coming in. And then we'll start to get all the hot takes of, oh, the whole team looks awful. And then that team that looked awful during spring training, or, all that, the mini camp stuff. Then they end up winning the Super Bowl or something like that, right? So everybody's got an opinion. Everybody wants to share it this time of year.
Okay, so did any of you watch the ESPYs?
Same.
Okay, what does that mean, Ryan, to see it in clip format?
That means the best
Bite-sized pieces.
Made it on X, and so I felt like I could consume the parts I wanted to in about 5 minutes.
Yeah, they picked a host this year that people were more excited about. Shane Gillis, he's a very popular comedian. So people were excited about his sound bites. And You know, kind of just the way he's going to roast the crowd and stuff like that. So same for me. I just saw like a few clips. I did not sit down and watch the whole thing.
Same. And all the clips were literally of Shane Gillis. I barely saw any athletes.
I don't even know who won. I don't even know what.
I don't know anything about the awards, but I saw a lot of funny jokes being said,
Yeah.
That's what you see nowadays.
Yeah. All right. A couple other things to set context here. I'm probably not going too far out on a limb to say that Ryan's the biggest baseball fan in the room. And probably biggest baseball fan in our ministry, and maybe this entire 12-story building that we're in right now.
Maybe in Texas.
Look,
Yeah.
Ryan likes minor league baseball. That's how big of a fan he is.
Yeah, he can tell you about minor league baseball. He's right. So the reason I bring it up, historic kind of thing. Major League Baseball's changed the All-Star game in some ways, and it ended in a way on Tuesday night of this week that's never happened before in something called a swing-off. Ryan, can you give us a quick understanding of what Major League Baseball's done here?
Well, baseball's been trying for years to find some solution to extra innings that didn't involve actually having to. A few years back, more than 2 years back now, they caught a bunch of heat because they just ended the game in a tie, and everyone agreed that's the worst possible. But at the same time, none of these teams that send their players to the All-Star game want them getting stretched out next to them. So the swing-off was kind of a new way of being able to actually have a winner without having to risk, extra innings or boredom there. And to be honest, I loved it. I thought it was a really fun way to finish it. I thought it kind of highlighted just the exhibition format of an All-Star game and really just it struck a great balance of not trying to make the game something. I think it's something a lot of the other leagues struggle with. They try and, like the NBA, whether NFL, NHL, all their All-Star games just don't even feel like sport. And baseball is the one that comes in close. And I thought this was a great way to kind of emphasize that, yes, this is still baseball, but it's also just.
Yeah, the other leagues could take notes from the MLB on like being innovative and trying to renew just excitement in your audience by the pitch clocks. Even now I'm seeing that they're trying to bring in the robotic umps. Everything that baseball's doing, because they started losing viewership and excitement behind the sport, they're doing things that are great, like this with the All-Star game. The other leagues should probably take some notes.
It's also been a while since the MLB has ever been referenced to in terms of being on the cutting edge of anything.
Yeah.
Right? So, I mean, like the fact that they're evolving and doing what they can to become more interesting, because it really is such a great sport. It's exciting.
Yeah. So anyway, those are some things happening around us. Last bit of context, I want our audience to know who they're talking to and who's talking to them and from what perspective. So going to let you guys kind of tell off a little bit on who you are from a sports standpoint. And I'll go first. So I'm the oldest person in this conversation, 62 years old. And I'm going to ask you to each tell me, do you consider yourself a fan or a fanatic when it comes to sports generally? And what is your favorite sport? So I would tell you that I am a fan of most all sports, but I'm not a fanatic about any of them. If I was ranking my favorite, it would be golf, college football, and baseball. And I would rank them almost all equally important to me. And that's just where my favorites are. So I'm the senior guy, playing on the senior tour here, if you will. So tell us how old you are, fan, fanatic. Oh, by the way, one other thing, I've only played one team sport, and that was 1 year of Little League Baseball. So since the 4th grade, I've never been on a sports team other than church softball. So tell me how much you want me to know, fan or fanatic. Connor?
I'm a fan of most sports. I'm a fanatic of NFL football and golf, professional golf. College football, I love as well. Fall is just the best time of the year, in my opinion, in terms of sports. Just football is on from basically Thursday to Monday night, and it's at my household. Yeah, and it's awesome. I grew up playing some sports, some team sports as a kid. I was not athletic. I was not good at them. I was a proud starter of the C team in middle school on basketball. Yes, we had a C team in my school district.
Yeah, but you were the starter though, right?
I was the starting point guard.
Well, hey man, just go with that.
Yeah, so
What about the D team?
we didn't even have enough kids at the school
They
to
had to
have
start
a
one for
D team.
Connor.
It was basically a participation team at that point. But I love sports, and I really enjoy right now, this time of the year, professional golf, just watching those guys not play team sport, and it's just a totally different dynamic. But football's the king of sports, and it's king in my household too.
Yeah, so I'm 29 years old. I grew up in DFW, southeast of Dallas. Sports has been such a huge part of my upbringing in life. I think some of the greatest memories of my upbringing is being at a Rangers game, going to a Mavs game, going to see the Cowboys play when they were in Irving, even then, right before they moved, watching the Longhorns win the championship in 2005, Mavs winning in 2011. I mean, it has just been such a cornerstone, man. Like, I was not the guy who collected the Yu-Gi-Oh cards. I was collecting baseball and football cards, and I was playing all the sports. I mainly played football and baseball and basketball through high school. Really enjoyed that. I would say this, and this is a very succinct answer. I am a fanatic of NFL football. I'm a fanatic of the Dallas Cowboys. I'm a fan of the NBA. I'm a fanatic of the Dallas Mavericks. I'm a fan of the MLB. I'm a fanatic of the Texas Rangers. And I am a fanatic of college football as well, and a fanatic of Texas Longhorn football. I also love golf. I watch tennis. I just like people seeing them compete at the highest level. It is just sheer will versus sheer will. It's the modern day Roman Colosseum.
Okay.
It's the modern day gladiator.
He's got really deep. I should clarify, Mike and I were the same age. We grew up in Dallas, both big Dallas sports fans of all the teams. But we are young enough to have never seen the Dallas Cowboys win an NFC championship.
That's correct.
Lifetime.
That's correct.
They won a Super Bowl right before we were each born, and it's been misery since
It's
then.
been a
Our entire
lifetime.
lifetime.
It's been a lifetime of disappointment. You'd think it would teach us humility, but still every single year we say, this is our year, we them boys. We're going to win it all.
Well, if you need Ryan to share stories about Troy Aikman, he can probably do that. I can share stories about Roger Staubach.
There you go.
I can
There
even
you
spell.
go.
I
The
can
glory
even
days.
spell Staubach if you need
The
me to.
glory days.
Yeah. Yeah. Ryan, your perspective.
I'm 39 years old, so I do remember vague memories of the last time the Cowboys. I remember more of the Super Bowl parties because my parents would always get like M&Ms back then, would make different colored M&Ms for the teams that were. And I always remember those things because when I was 5 or 6, that mattered a lot more.
It's cool. I wish they'd still do that.
So it was great.
All right.
Yeah, but
Fan or fanatic?
probably like I said it well, like fan of basketball, fan of the NBA, fanatic of the Mavericks, probably fanatic of baseball and the Rangers. But baseball and basketball are definitely my two favorites. I love football as well, but to be honest, I watch that more for fantasy football.
Fantasy football. Didn't even mention fantasy
There you
football.
go.
Yeah.
Big deal. Big deal.
I started that in high school with some friends, and I've been hooked ever since.
Mm-hmm.
So have we. Yeah.
So it's been great. But growing up, I played basketball mainly. Kind of played Little League baseball for a bit, but really kind of fell back in love with baseball in college when I came to understand back then the Rangers were awful. And the thing I loved about baseball was that even if you followed the minor leagues, there was always something you could put hope in. There were players, there were guys who you knew didn't really have a great shot of making the majors, but when they're playing against other 18-year-olds, then they look phenomenal. And so the thing I loved about baseball was it gives you space to hope that the other sports don't. And I think that's really kind of what I fell in love with in a lot of ways. When all my other sports teams, there was always room for hope.
That is so true about baseball, right? There's just so much complexity to it, so many different storylines in every single game. That's a great point.
I don't know about you, Connor, but I feel like the fanatic side of the room is over there.
Yeah,
And the
Connor does really love
the
sports.
more
though.
reasonable
I love sports.
You got to go with me here, Connor.
Okay,
you got to
sorry.
be on my
Sorry,
side
Mark.
here.
I'm trying to make sure.
No, Mark, you're on an island.
I'm
over
on an
there.
island.
You're on an
Okay.
island.
I'm on an island.
You're
Yeah.
right. They seem like a maybe more fanatic widespread, but my fanaticism stays with football for the most part. But I dabble in all the other sports,
Okay, so maybe a good segue here is how our good friend from Dallas, Scottie Scheffler, kind of turned the sports world a little bit on its head this
Close
week.
friend, Scottie Scheffler.
Yeah, we wish he was our close friend. We hope he listens to
Maybe in
this.
proximity.
Yes.
And we're going to celebrate Scottie's comments, but it is the beginning of arguably the biggest golf tournament in the world. It probably should be characterized that way as the British Open starts this week. And high expectation for people like Scottie Scheffler. But he was interviewed kind of at press day, if you will. And people were asking him interesting questions like, what's been the greatest celebration of any tournament? And he said, it really doesn't last more than about 2 minutes. And he went on to say some pretty astounding things We know, many people know of his very dedicated faith as a Christian. And he made a statement. I watched different parts of the interview. He said, if I ever think in any shape, form, or fashion that being out here as a professional golfer is going to hurt my marriage or my parenting, my family, it'll be the last round of golf I ever play. And when he said that, it reminded me something of the legend of Bobby Jones, who gave up golf kind of at the peak, at the pinnacle of his career. What do you guys think of Scheffler and his comments about sports is great, but sports is not everything?
Man, it was just truly an amazing statement to say, knowing he's on the world stage, knowing he's the world's best golfer, and that he has such a platform. And most athletes in that scenario would not say anything along the lines of, golf's just a game. I get to play it. I enjoy competing in it. I love it. But at the end of the day, it's just golf, essentially. Yep. And he's like, I'd rather be a great father than a great golfer. I'd rather be focused on my family. I love when he said, if it ever impacts my home life or my faith, I'm done. Most athletes would really struggle to make that commitment. And he just is showing his faith without standing back. And Micah said it on our podcast yesterday for Culture Brief. He said it doesn't come across as churchy either. He's not like trying to preach it on anybody. He's not trying to say anybody else should think this way, but he's saying, here's how I feel about this. And it comes across as just so real and genuine. You can see his faith being lived out in this massive platform, and he's using his incredible talents to do that. It's just awesome to see.
Yeah. I really enjoyed it too. I think it was really relatable for a lot of people what he had to say. I'll read just a couple sentences of what he specifically said. There are a lot of people that make it to what they thought was going to fulfill them in life, but you get to number one in the world and then they're like, what's the point? This is not a fulfilling life. I love being able to play this game for a living. It's one of the greatest joys of my life, but does it fill the deepest wants and desires of my heart? Absolutely not. So, right? It's kind of it's an understanding of human nature that all of these things that told me would bring me fulfillment, win that tournament for us, like we talked about, get that next promotion, buy that bigger house, get that nicer thing, go accomplish this. And then, as Scottie said, it lasts for 2 minutes. And then you're left wondering, what is the purpose and meaning of all of it in the first place? And so the way Scottie put it, you see golf.com circulating it, saying that this was incredible. ESPN, just the way he said it was so relatable, but it really has such a biblical message to it that it's finite. Victories, accomplishments, it's finite. What's the meaning? What's the purpose? We're searching for something deeper. And Scottie really touched on that.
Yeah. Right?
One thing I'd add to it is that I think his status as the best golf player in the world gives him a gravity that other people
Absolutely.
don't have. I mean,
Yeah.
the person who's finishing 50th or 60th in all the tournaments says, winning's really not that important. It's different than the guy who's actually doing it. And I think there's something to that. Like he's able to say that, and he says it without any hint of disappointment in the reality of that. So many other athletes, you hear them say similar things after winning a championship. There's almost like a depression in their voice where they have put all their effort, and then they come to find out it's not fulfilling, and they don't know where to go next. And Scheffler said it, knowing full well, like, I can say this because I know that this isn't supposed to be. It's not that it's failing to live up to expectations. It's everything it's supposed to be. It's just not supposed to be.
Yeah, and I love the way you put that, Ryan. That just really resonates with me. And Micah, what you were saying that Scheffler said about you get to be number one in the world. When he said it, I almost thought that's an arrogant statement, but I thought there's nothing arrogant about the way he's saying it. And it made me also think of the guy in business who gets to the top of the business world only to find out that wasn't satisfying either, and all those kinds of things. But we kind of all intuitively know sports is just about having fun, is what it really is supposed to be about. But in our culture, kind of one of the driving reasons we wanted to have this conversation is it just looks like in many ways that people have in some ways turned their sports into their religion. We've talked and we've written in Denison Forum World about how people have done that with politics, and that politics is now kind of this 24/7, 365 thing, and that people have really just so totally embraced it as almost a religion. And for some people, it really would meet that criteria. And people have struggled with that relative to sports as well. Loved what Scottie said in that regard as well. That, hey, this, I loved when he said, I struggle to walk up to a tournament like the Masters or the British Open and wonder, why do I want to win so bad? Especially when somebody like he knows, he's won enough to know, if I do win, it's a blip on the radar. And then the next thing out of somebody's mouth is, well, what are you going to do next week? And he just understands that perspective. So we're going to deal with some of these related topics and how faith just enters into these kinds of conversations. Ryan, you are the guy that has a doctoral degree in church history. So we're going to take that background along with your love for sports and just say, can you give us a brief overview? If we were to write, what does the Bible say about sports? What might be some of the things that we would talk about?
I think you probably start with Paul. Paul, by all historical accounts, was not entirely athletic, but he still seemed to love sports. In his letter to the Corinthians, for example, like in 1 Corinthians 9, he uses the example of running a race. He uses the example of athletic training. He even talks about boxing as analogies for understanding the Christian life. And I think sports does have a unique ability to speak to the need for competition, the need how being great requires sacrifice, about how really putting in the work is essential to seeing the reward. And I think Paul really taps into that in a lot of his writings. Elsewhere in like 2 Timothy, he uses the same example to kind of encourage to not give up, to understand that when things get hard, that's not a bad thing. That just means that it's
right.
better. And I think that's one of the things I love about sports. I think one of the ways that we can apply these passions to faith is because it's the same. Like our faith hasn't changed. It's still something where faith is not supposed to be. I mean, our salvation is simple, but that doesn't mean it's true. And wrestling with what it means to grow in our faith on a daily basis, to really kind of play into to see God's redemption of the trials. I think a lot of those same sports analogies still very in a way that whether you're talking about ancient Roman athletic competitions or still kind of rings true. It's really cool how we can make there's such a short leap to make between 2,000 years.
Yeah, so there's certainly enough there to know that sports were operating in the culture and in the background of biblical times, particularly New Testament. We know that the city of Corinth, where we have 2 very substantial letters to the believers at Corinth, they were the home of what was called the Isthmian Games, which were the precursor to the Olympic Games. So it may have been a part of the reason that Paul pulled out some of those metaphors. We don't know if it was Paul that actually wrote to the letter of Hebrews, but there's reference there in Hebrews 12 about running your race. So we know that it was a part of their world and a part of the context. There are probably not too many obvious examples of somebody that had made this their faith or their religion, but there probably was. We just don't know who they were because we tend to go too far with a lot of things in our world. And we're going to try to expose some of those things and try to work our way through them for your benefit in the rest of our conversation. But right now, we're going to take a moment to step aside, take a breath, and catch our breath. And we'll be right back in just a second. All right, so you can talk now. Dan, this will be the first break.
Okay, but we're still being recorded, so I can't say whatever I want.
Yeah, you could, but
Dan?
Dan's going to know, and Catherine's going to know.
Who's Dan?
The producer of the show.
Oh, well, Dan, how are you, brother? Hope you're having a good day, man. How's your family?
Thanks for doing the work, Dan.
Thanks for doing the work, Dan.
And
Dan the man.
Dan the man. So, all right, anything, you guys good?
How much time we have left?
Well, we're 28 minutes in, so we're rocking along. We're rocking along. We're having fun. All right.
We have a lot in here, but we'll both breeze through it.
Yep.
Okay, coming back to you first, Micah. All right?
Yep.
All right. Y'all ready?
Let's do it.
Boom.
Just be careful about touching here. I don't know if that's going to mess with the connection. It's probably fine for you to do that. I'd be careful about moving that around. All right? Okay? But everybody else is being really good at being quiet. Okay?
Are we being too quiet?
No.
Oh, okay.
But nobody's tapping the table.
Give me throwing some uh-huhs.
No, I think they're great.
Can I get a hallelujah?
It's what we would do if we were at the coffee shop.
Yeah. Amen, brother.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Let's start again. All right, welcome back. We're going to continue our conversation here on the Denison Forum podcast about sports. Micah, let's talk about some of these complex issues. We're going to jump into this whole thing about college sports and get us up to speed on this first comment.
Yeah, so college athletes have been paid, especially through endorsements and certain things, for a few years now, but really there was a court case that made it completely official. And what we're experiencing is a complete shift in college athletics. The NCAA recently agreed to a $2.8 billion settlement in House versus NCAA. So starting next year officially, schools will be allowed to pay athletes directly, not just through NIL deals, not just through advertisers. Schools will be paying their players basically salaries, but through actual revenue sharing with up to $20.5 million per school. Now, some schools, like we're going to talk about, they're never going to get to that number. But the bigger schools, you've got that $20.5 million per school kind of cap. But then if you're at a larger university with a larger footprint, like the University of Texas, Ohio State, Alabama, any team in the SEC, the list goes on. Well, then the endorsements, the NIL deals, these kids are going to end up making a ton of money. And there's pros and cons of that. These players are putting their bodies on the line to hopefully make it to the professional level, because this is not just college football, it's for every sport. So some of them will make it to a professional level, a lot of them will not. So this isn't just a tweak, it's a total overhaul. So here's why it matters. For years, college athletes generated billions while receiving little more than a scholarship. Now, for the first time, schools will be legally allowed to actually pay players a portion of that revenue. So here's the basics of the new model. It sends billions to former players that were denied past compensation. So it rights some wrongs. And then it shifts college sports into a semi-pro business model. And then it opens the door for roster-wide pay, not just the stars. Like the backup offensive lineman, if you're playing at the University of Texas, you're going to make a better salary than a lot of people, right? So that's kind of where we're headed. In short, it's a win for fairness, but it's not without fallout. It's not without its issues. So here's the good. Here's the good part of this that I can clearly say. Athletes finally get paid for the hours, risk, and value they bring to their schools. It levels the field for players who may not land major NIL deals, but still give their all on the field. It also adds honesty to a system that has profited off of what you might call free labor for many, many years, right? In a sense, it's been free labor. Here are the challenges, lots of challenges. Big schools, they love this. This is good for them. They're cashing in. Schools like Texas, Ohio State, Alabama, like I mentioned, are already raising full war chests to fund these payments. Smaller schools, well, many are opting out. We actually talked about this last month on Culture Brief. Houston Christian, formerly Houston Baptist, recently announced they can't afford to participate. They pulled out of this deal. So that's going to widen the gap between the haves and the have-nots in college sports. And what about non-revenue sports? What about all the other college athletics, all the other schools, all the other teams?
Yeah.
When budgets get stretched, programs like tennis, swimming, wrestling, including many women's teams, are going to take a hit. And this could solve one equity problem while creating an entirely different equity problem. Any thoughts on that so far?
Yeah, I just know that some of the Olympic sports, like you just mentioned, those coaches are worried about this because they're like, you're going to focus so much on the big sports, football and basketball, because they make so much revenue. These sports where it may not be a revenue driver, but it's definitely a driver in other ways, in athleticism, as well as creating Olympic teams for the future. And also there's typically scholarships that go to those programs as well. Are those going to get pulled back? They're all kind of worried about that. But you're right. This does solve a lot of the problems that players have had for a long time, a lot of the problems that coaches have had. It's also going to probably help solve the problem of so many players are coming on these NIL deals to these schools, and then they transfer out to go to another school because that's where they're going to get another deal. But this may open the opportunity as a kind of semi-pro league to get multi-year contracts for players. So they don't just come play 1 year at a school and then hop to another place. Yeah. They might be able to say, okay, I'll sign a 3-year contract for this amount of money, whatever they can negotiate and whatever their agents are negotiating. So it seems like this could be a step in the right direction, but there's a lot of unknowns still.
One thing I would add is I'm really curious to see how the schools go about helping these kids learn how to manage that money. I can imagine.
Oh, great thought. Yeah.
18 years old.
Yeah.
And so if these schools start to treat the athletes as employees, where they're like, yeah, we're giving you the money, up to you to figure out how to use it, that's going to be risky success. If they start building into kind of the athletic curriculum, manage your money, pay your taxes, they start getting accountants to step in and help out.
Yep.
I mean, there's lots of gray areas where some schools can step in, and I think even beyond the money, really make a difference in these kids' lives that teach them lessons that extend well beyond the playing, which again is part of the one of the things that theoretically the student athletes are getting when they go to school is they're getting an education.
That's right.
But if they get an opportunity to learn how to manage money by actually having money, then that could be great. If they end up leaving owing back taxes and broke because they have no idea what to do with all this newfound income, then I think it's just going to exacerbate an already problem.
It's a great question. Yeah.
Yeah, and you're going to
Great
see,
thought.
and you're going to see stuff. And I don't know that I'm paying enough attention here, but there's probably already new industries jumping up, such as particularly agents,
Yep.
right?
Yeah, no doubt.
So there's a whole new level of agents that have typically been in the professional sports that are now in these sports.
Not even just that. There's not technically a certification process for these agents like there is for the pro leagues.
Oh, wow.
So you got these just basically people are like, hey, I'm an agent.
Right.
And they're making these families believe that they're a trustworthy person, and they're taking advantage of these families because they're like, my kid's just in high school. I don't know anything. Hope got us through it. But without a certification process, which hopefully that comes down the line with the settlement as well, you just have amateur hour out there.
Yeah, so there are some things being floated. The next 6 to 12 months of this is huge. I'm going to lay out a few of those things real quick, but I just want to put some real numbers behind this, okay? The highest NIL valuation for a college athlete is with Arch Manning, the quarterback for the Texas Longhorns. Long line of legacy when it comes to great quarterbacks, right?
Yep.
So Arch Manning has a $6.8 million valuation, has major deals with companies like Red Bull, right? Adding to already a very long line and list of advertisers and people who are sponsoring him. So these top athletes are living in a new era, and this ruling, like we're talking about, is just making it official. But here are the ideas that are being floated. The work is in progress, but the next 6 to 12 months will be critical. So athlete unions might start popping up.
Oh, wow.
It could allow bargaining, but mostly viable in the Power 5 conferences, the largest conferences. But there's most likely going to be unions. I mean, just like in the MLB, there's an MLBPA. There's a players association that represents the players as a whole.
Yeah.
And then the other side is the owners. And in the same way, it'll be the schools and then the athletes. That could help. Federal legislation, it's possible, but it's in a politically gridlocked spot right now to kind of fix it. Tiered participation. So schools could then choose whether to opt in or where they want to opt in. So there's some ideas being floated about, like if you're a Houston Christian University, is there a way they could opt in at a lower level with other smaller schools that want to compete as well? And then finally, I think this is the thing that probably just needs to happen, and that it will, is more tight NIL oversight. Things like salary caps, things like somebody actually running it, like a committee running it and saying, here's what's fair, here's what's not fair. But I just want to jump into the spiritual application of it that it makes me think of, and then I'd love to get y'all's thoughts. This ruling is creating major gaps. Some athletes are getting millions, others are getting nothing. They're being ignored. Same sport, same work, different outcome. It sounds unfair. And something sounding unfair also sounds and feels familiar. We've all felt that way before, right? Something being unfair. We all feel the pull of comparison in our lives. Who's getting what? Who's ahead? Who's being noticed? But comparison steals joy, and it blurs our view of what God is actually doing in our lives. And the scripture I want to call to here is in Philippians 4:11-12. And Paul writes this, "Not that I am speaking of being in need, for I have learned in whatever situation I am to be content. I know how to be brought low, and I know how to abound. In any and every circumstance, I have learned the secret of facing plenty and hunger, abundance and need." So if anybody could learn to be content, and we should listen, it's Paul. That dude went through a whole lot in the face of every type of adversity you could ever think of. He preached the gospel. He stayed faithful. So what's the lesson for us through this? He had to learn contentment. I think maybe we should too. So here's the challenge. Let's not look sideways. Look at everybody else's race. Let's look up, focus on our race, celebrate other people's wins in your lives, and then thank God that you are where you are right now. You don't need someone else's story to live out your purpose. And then contentment isn't about settling for less. It's about trusting God with the timing, the path, and the outcome.
Yeah. No, great stuff. Great stuff in this. Yeah. Thanks for bringing us into that, because there's so much to think about. And one thing that, as you were describing it, is like so many things in life, this is really complex, and it's been complex, and it's been big business. It's also been in some ways abusive. You can argue this in a lot of ways. You can hear people saying, well, they always did get paid. They got free college. And they didn't go away with college loans. And then you could turn it the way you turned it a minute ago, which is, hey, these universities were making billions of dollars off of essentially very cheap or free labor. And then there's always the rule of unintended consequences, right? There's gonna be stuff that grows out of the way that it's being addressed now that nobody anticipated growing out. And then one of the spiritual things that hits, now we kind of have to really kind of say, I don't know that we really can call this semi-pro anymore. When it's operating at this level with these kind of dollars, how could that be called semi-anything?
Right.
And it also brings, I love that you focus on contentment, because it's one of the biggest spiritual values for us to embrace. And Paul is talking in a financial sense when he's saying this to the Philippian church. He's talking about material, financial stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things I learned is of pastoring churches and in my own personal experience, money creates as many and possibly more problems than it solves. And I remember when one of my favorite college athletes said, was talking about this, and I thought to myself, well, if I was 18 or 20 years old and you put me in an environment where 100,000 people had come to watch me do something, I'm not sure I would be sane.
Right.
I'm pretty sure I wouldn't be sane.
Very hard to stay humble.
And if you add hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars to, oh, by the way, millions of people are coming to watch what I do week in and week out, and they're giving me a ridiculous amount of money to do it, and I'm 18, 20.
Just a kid still. Yeah.
How could you expect there not to be a lot of really crazy outcomes in that world? Ryan, Connor, thoughts?
Yeah, I just can't imagine sitting in my dorm room, turning on the TV, and my face is on ESPN because they're talking about me and the way I performed in a game on Saturday. That'd be crazy. So everything you guys just said is so true. There's a lot of applications, things that we are not sure how this will play out in the future. There will be unintended consequences. There's probably going to be some great blessings that come out of it as well. We'll just see. Hopefully this brings more athletes to a great platform. They're like, I can now afford to go to school and focus on this without having to, like, their athleticism, as opposed to being focused on having to work or whatever it is. I don't know. I think there's going to be some great things that come out of it as well. But that's my thoughts.
Yeah.
I think y'all covered it well. And the one thing I would add is I do think it also just kind of further raises that temptation for kids that haven't ascended to that level yet to think, okay, if I just, school's not really that important. If I can get that athletic scholarship, I'm set for life. Whether I make it to the pros or not, I'll be a millionaire. And there's already so much of a temptation for young athletes to think that sports can be kind of the way that they make it. And I think this is going to exacerbate that. But at the same time, that temptation is always going to be. So I think learn to manage that well is part of being a good athlete, part of using those gifts well. And I think so much of it does go back to it. And I think that's one of the lessons we can take. It goes back to that idea of God has gifted you in a certain area. He is also asking you to use those gifts well. And I think athletes, they're athletes as well. They're still athletes, but there's there's going to be contracts with millions of people watching. Millions of dollars involved now. But for all of us, God has gifted you in a certain area. He has done so with the expectation that you use those gifts well. And all the stewards.
Yeah. Good point.
Amen.
Good point. All right, let's move into another area. We want to talk about something that, for me, was significant when I was 20 and starting out in ministry, and then kind of faded out, and that is just a focus on gambling. Connor, take us into some of the issues that are rising relative to sports and sports gambling these days.
Yeah, first off, it kind of actually ties into everything we just talked about with the NCAA. I'll hit on that in a minute. And the warning you gave, Mark, about money and what it can cause and temptation and greed and all of that, it all ties back into that. And there's a lot of warnings in Scripture, and I'll hit on a few of those. But basically, sports gambling's, I mean, we're approaching like it being an epidemic. Like it is so widespread in America now, and particularly among the younger generations and young men specifically. It is so it grabs you, and it's hard to get out of gambling if you get really into it. It's a very big addicting thing. People have always known that, but there's never been such ease of access. And that's because in 2018, the Supreme Court struck down a decision that basically prevented sports gambling across the U.S., except for in Nevada. Mm-hmm. So it used to be you had to go to Las Vegas if you wanted to sports gamble, or you had to use an illegal bookkeeper, which was a common thing, but now it's legal in 39 states and in DC and in Puerto Rico. And so you've got so many people that are sitting on their phones just placing bets.
Yeah, and it's, this is crazy. It's like, it's old, but it's new. I'll tell you a little personal story. The very first MLB ball game I ever went to, I was 10 years old. My sister took me to the Houston Astrodome. I saw the dreaded Houston Astros. Ryan and I share a particular feeling there.
We all share it.
We all share it.
Yeah. We all share that.
But in those days, it was the Astros in what I consider to be then and now the ugliest uniform I've ever seen. Sorry to all my friends in Houston. But they were playing the Cincinnati Reds. And they were playing against Pete Rose. And Pete Rose at the top of his career. My sister prepped me by telling me, hey, this guy slides face forward. Nobody else does that. And I remember going into the Astrodome kind of praying that I would get to see him do this. So had seats 8, 12 rows up from the field, and I got to see Pete Rose do a head first slide.
That's awesome.
Which was just absolutely phenomenal. And then Pete Rose blows up his career by gambling on his own team.
Yep.
So anyway, not to derail you, Connor.
No,
but
it's true. It's always been a thing. There's always been athletes. Shoeless Joe Jackson with the White Sox, right? There's always been
Shoeless Joe reference.
Man.
Wow,
That's a big reach right there.
Stuff.
Yeah, I'm just.
He
I'm
felt
genuinely
like he had to compete with you,
I'm
Micah.
genuinely impressed.
I mean, it kind of just hit me a minute ago. I was thinking about some
Shoeless
history.
Joe.
There's just the point is there's always been gambling. There's always been the temptation, even for players, and there still is today. In fact, we got some NBA players who are currently under investigation. Jonte Porter from the Toronto Raptors was given a lifetime ban, like Pete Rose was, lifetime ban from the MLB, because he was quite literally gambling on the games he was in and messing with his stats, right?
Who was the player that just got in trouble?
And then Malik Beasley on the Detroit Pistons is being investigated currently. He's probably going to get suspended because there's quite literally some footage of him very clearly not playing good defense.
I was about to say,
and
these clips.
He was betting on his own unders, essentially, is the charge there. Is that
so many clips where he was making like just airheaded mistake after airheaded mistake at the end of certain games.
Okay, number one, you guys know more about sports than you should know. I'm just calling all three of you out. You just know more than you should know. The Shoeless Joe Jackson comment took us down this road, okay? But here's the other thing that just jumps into my mind at this moment is we all have been talking about, learning about, reading about, writing about, podcasting about how we've lost confidence in the government. We've lost confidence in education. We've lost confidence in medicine. Now, are we heading down the road because of gambling? We no longer feel like we can trust the sports that we enjoy because these guys are hedging their own performance.
It's a great question. There's a lot of people that are like, the leagues have to make sure this is why they're putting down these lifetime bans, because they're like, if we let players get away with this and not put a severe punishment, it will continue to spiral.
But let me challenge that thought a little bit from a standpoint of, but now we've rolled back the penalty that Pete Rose was put on him.
That's
if
true.
we wait long enough, we're gonna. I'm sorry to take us down that road.
You can't get him while you're alive. Still kind of.
Yeah, this is a pretty steep penalty.
Yeah.
Okay.
I guess it's still there, but
okay.
If you're carrying about as a legacy that survives, then that's not as big of an event.
Okay, Ryan. Thanks for bringing us back to grace. It was a good call to bring us back to grace. All right, Connor, keep going.
Yeah. Anyway, so we got all these states that have legalized it, and since that's happened, we've seen $330 billion wagered on games. Ryan, you wrote an article earlier this spring about March Madness specifically and some of the betting in that regards. March Madness had $3.1 billion wagered on it this year, which is insane. And we got estimates saying 20 to 40% of U.S. adults are gambling on sports.
Wow.
Now, this can take place in fantasy football. This can take place just on your phone watching a game. I would venture to say each of us, and probably a lot of people listening to this, cannot listen to or watch a show without getting some sort of gambling ads in relation to sports. You're listening to a podcast, you're probably going to hear a DraftKings or FanDuel advertisement, right?
Yep.
You're watching a game live, and the FanDuel or ESPN bet thing comes up showing you the odds for this specific quarter or whatever it is, and you can literally get on your phone and bet on it right then and there. It is live betting. It's even gone beyond sports. Like there's Kalshi and Polymarket. You can bet on politics and the weather and everything. It's just crazy how much gambling has taken over our culture. It's no longer you have to walk into a literal casino or horse racing track. It is in your hands, and that's scary. And the leagues like it. Fantasy Life founder Matthew Berry, he recently said in an interview I was reading, it's taken a while to get here, but at this point, all the leagues understand how important gambling is. It's because it's a fan base that needs to be catered to, right? Studies have shown that if somebody plays fantasy sports, they are twice as likely than an average sports fan to watch more games, buy more tickets, and buy more merch.
Oh, wow.
So all the leagues in their own way are embracing it and pushing it. Leagues like the boosted revenue, right? The TV networks like the boosted viewership that comes from gambling. And the states that are legalizing this like the boosted tax revenue. There's basically positives for each of them. They have an incentive to continue to press gambling. And what they're not recognizing is like there are people who are losing their entire savings. They're ruining their family's finances. There are men who are blowing away all of their college savings. Like young high school kids are doing this because the age verification is just not great. And you only have to be 18 in a lot of states. And so, yeah, you've got these high school seniors who are like, oh, I can make a quick buck. No, it's not that easy. But what they do is they convince you it is. And they bring you in. You'll hear these advertisements, and it'll say, join FanDuel today and get $500 to play with, right? They'll give you $500. And you're like, okay, that's house money. But the idea is to get you addicted to it. Get addicted to the high that you feel during a game when your bet hits. But then how many bets are not hitting? That's what they're banking on. And that's what's more likely to happen.
I also think it can rob the spirit of sports in and of itself.
Yeah.
If you're watching a game and interested in it purely because you have a ton of money riding on it, that changes the way that you view a game. Yeah. When the Dallas Cowboys inevitably fail and flounder whenever they make it to the playoffs and get bounced out in the first round after another great year, that disappointment would be even greater if I had placed all this money on it and they lose. Yeah. My goodness, I'm not sure if I could recover from that.
Yeah, it's the integrity of sport. And this is what you were just talking about. Does this affect the integrity of not only the sport and the athletes and the refs and the coaches who could potentially be involved in under the table gambling on their own sport, but it also affects the integrity of just fandom, right? Yeah. All of that. And it's affecting so many people's lives. And there's parlay bets that they bring you in with for $5. You can bet on 3 different things that if all 3 of those things happen, you'll win this big chunk of change. And so a lot of people are like, oh, just $5 and I can win 200. That sounds great. But how many times you just keep doing that and doing that and doing that, riding that high. And then you realize if you actually go and look at your finances, there's a good chance you are just bleeding money. And then there's also the aspect of the mental health of the athlete. So the NCAA actually came out and said harassment related to sports betting can actually cause serious harm to student athlete mental health and well-being because people are attacking them on social media and even in person sometimes saying, hey, when you dropped that pass, you lost me $500.
Oh, wow.
You know, they're blaming the
Imagine
athlete.
in college. A college athlete is in a lecture and a classmate who betted on the game is upset at him
this
because
actually happened. Yeah, wow. This is a real thing. And blaming people for your action of making a bet is totally wrong. That's absolutely the wrong way to see it. But it's just affecting a lot of things. We've seen other players get suspended. We've seen Shohei Ohtani's interpreter get imprisoned because he was taking Shohei Ohtani's money and
ruined his life.
Ruined his life.
The sweetest thing going ever.
Yeah, it's just it's crazy. But I mean, do you guys have any like just general thoughts on sports betting? It's obviously just so ingrained in our culture now.
One thing I would say is that I do think it's so important. It speaks to how important it is to know kind of where you're. A lot of ways. I think there's some people that they may place a $5 bet, and for them it's like, okay, if I don't hit, I'm not going to Starbucks. And that's their mentality. Like, as soon as they place the bet, that money is gone. If it comes back, great. Other people that are more prone to get addicted to it, for them, I mean, speaking for myself, like in that article about NCAA, I talked about how I've not really ever been all that prone to alcohol. Like I've never really enjoyed it that much, and so I don't really have to worry. Like if I have a drink, I'm not worried about becoming alcoholic. I do enjoy that dopamine high from kind of playing poker or doing other things like that. And so I know for me, it would be a sin to bet on sports because I'm more prone to get in trouble. And I think one of the things Paul talks about, he writes about how, you know, not all things are lawful, but not all things are lawful. All things are lawful, but not everything is like that. And I think that idea is important to keep in mind with this topic, especially that if you know that you are prone to addiction of any, you know that you are prone is an example though of how while some things are sins for everybody, other things are sins for some people and not others, based on whether or not they're likely to reach their victory, whether or not they're likely to lead to making it. I think gambling's the next one.
Yeah, I mean that's great. I would say another just great piece of wisdom comes from Proverbs 13:11. It says, "Wealth gained hastily," some versions say a get rich quick situation, "it will dwindle, but whoever gathers little by little will increase it." So the idea of just hoping you hit something so that you get an immediate sense of wealth, it's the same thing with the lottery, any sort of gambling, right? And it's easy to get the high that you're talking about. Sitting at a table in a casino is the same type of thing, that dopamine rush. If it's a problem for you, yeah, you probably should not dabble in this because it's dangerous. The Bible does not specifically say that you should not gamble. There's not a specific verse about that, but there's so many warnings about wealth and greed and what can happen when you are so focused on money and getting rich that you end up allowing it to ruin
Well,
you.
and also just how quickly something can become an idol.
Yeah,
Sports betting or sports.
Yeah, exactly.
Definitely.
Yeah, when you combine those two, wealth and sports, I mean, it's, obviously this is a huge icon. Some of the wealthiest people in our culture are athletes, and not to knock them for that. They were pursuing their excellence, and there's a lot of reasons why that's good and why it's honorable in every way. And many athletes do incredibly good things with their money. They create foundations and they help bless people in all kinds of situations. They pay for medical bills and they feed the hungry, both here in the United States and other. A lot of these athletes are exemplary in that way. But it just kind of astounds me. I can remember, starting out, first full-time job I had as a pastor was in the season when the Texas lottery, where we all live, was being proposed. And I was a part of helping to inform people about the dangers of playing the lottery, which has now been with us for decades and is almost just a given. But there's so many inherently dangerous things in here. These things can, in the culture that fully embraces gambling, hides the stories of brokenness. They hide oftentimes the statistics of the number of people who have really damaged or ruined their lives, ruined their marriages, ruined their families because they were deceived. Much of what we've been talking about is deception to try to pull you in, and that's the way almost all addictions work. Is it works with a deceptive type of approach. And Connor just made me think of another Proverbs verse that says, Lord, don't give me too much, or I'll forget about you, or don't give me too little, or I'll curse you. Give me my portion. Give me the portion that's going to take care of me and that's going to create that sense of contentment in my life.
Love that.
Because we live in a world in which so many of us think that having a lot of money and having a lot of fame is what real living is all about. And the Bible speaks very clearly against those realities. All right, guys, we got just a little bit more to go, and there's so many more things we want to say. But let's step aside, catch our breath one more time, and we're going to come back with one more topic. All right? All right. All good? We're a little bit long, but we're going to keep going because...
Dan, did you have time to eat dinner while we were talking? What did you have, Dan? What, Ryan?
I was gonna say, the one thing I misquoted that, I left off the end of that whole verse where all things are love for me, but I will not be silent.
Hmm.
I think there's a way to kind of bring that back in.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of one of the ways.
Maybe we could bring that
Get
up
it back
at the end, because that can play into sports.
Get it back
just-
in, Ryan.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll get it in.
That's what's kind of
I just want to
Yep.
say this is so fun,
It is fun.
and I just love the fact that this is a part of my work day today.
Yeah.
So thank you
I'm going to
guys.
get hammered by Pete Rose fans that think I was too mean.
He's a complicated figure. There's a lot of
sure
it.
there's a whole lot of
No, he was plenty punished.
Also,
though.
the only reason he got reinstated is because Trump called Rob Manfred and said, "You need to reinstate."
But then he
him."
died, and then it's like he didn't get to experience any of it.
Well, yeah, Trump called him after he died and
I know.
said, "Now
Like,
he's dead, so now
he's dead.
reinstate
I
him
mean-
so he can be in the Hall of Fame."
I don't think you can tell the story of baseball without
No,
it. So it makes sense for him to be there.
no.
I do think not letting him receive that honor is great.
It's the same thing with like steroids, right? I mean, some of these players change the game. I mean, Barry Bonds,
Yeah.
Mark McGuire. I mean, just some of the best players
Lance Armstrong.
ever Well, yeah, different sport, but yeah, roids.
Yep.
For sure. I remember writing a paper in high school about roids. I think it was pro roids that I
wow.
wrote the paper on. Yeah.
All right, Dan, that part doesn't get included in the recording, all right? Especially if we're going to call it roids, okay?
HGH.
All right, let's pick it back up, and we'll not spend too much time. We'll get to a
How much
landing
time do we have,
spot.
Mark?
Well, we're at 60 minutes with breaks, but we're probably actually sitting down around 54.
Okay.
And if we end up at 62, 68,
Okay.
we're fine. So
Few minutes.
we're
All
not
right.
going to go real long here,
All right.
okay? All right, welcome back to the Denison Forum podcast. We're talking about sports, faith, and culture, and lots of big stuff to think about here that we're all hearing about almost every day. But guys, I want to kind of bring us to maybe kind of some of a landing spot. Just to kind of tell you guys, because I am older than you, so I can, I can mentor you in these ways. But I will tell you, when it comes to faith and when it comes to kind of ground level living, where we all are, you guys are all dads. I'm a dad. I'm a granddad now. And my daughter just told me a few days ago, hey, signing up her oldest child, 7 years old, to play her first more organized sport. She's going to play volleyball. Okay. Super excited about that because her mother, my daughter, was a varsity athlete and kind of peeked over the fence about playing college volleyball. So we had a great run in that. But where you guys may be headed as young dads and where many people are right now is, how do sports, the pressure of sports for children and for teenagers, how does that work when it comes to the spiritual development of that child and the way the family operates? Are you guys thinking about that? Are you just trying to not think about it until you get there? Did you deal with it when you were a teenager? And let me give you one quick story. In the town I grew up in East Texas, there was a baseball team that was playing in the playoffs for the city championship. And they had a key game that came up on the schedule. And on this baseball team was one of the best players whose faith was that of a Seventh-day Adventist. And this player had told his coach before the season, hey, if it gets to this time of day during the week, I cannot play in this window of time. I don't know exactly what that window of time was for him as a Seventh-day Adventist. Obviously, probably had something to do with Saturday. But he had told his coach right up, if we get to this point, I cannot play the game anymore. And it came up that in this particular game, all of the players didn't show up. Some of them they were on vacation or they had other commitments or whatever. So there were only 9 players on the field for this kid's team. And we got up to that window where he told his coach, if we get here, I can't play anymore. And it got to that point. He walked off the field, told his coach, Coach, I'm sorry, but I got to go. And they had to forfeit the game. And the coach, nobly, I think, looked at this young man and said, it's not your fault. It's the teammates who didn't make it here today. Anyway, families are dealing with things perhaps not that severe. But this whole idea, I can tell you honestly, just struggled with this as a pastor. Also struggled with this as a parent because, like I said, I had a child that played varsity sports. And there were constantly tournaments and games and all kinds of things that were set right in conflict with doing important and valuable spiritual development things, particularly in the context of our local church. Thoughts?
I know it's something that my wife and I talked about because our son loves baseball, and we know a lot of people that do travel ball baseball. We've got friends that are going to be starting to do that soon, and those tournaments start on Sunday morning. And one of the things we've talked about and prayed about is that we're just not willing to miss church. I don't want to be dogmatic about that. I think it should be a conversation between you and your wife or your spouse or not. But at the same time, I do think it's important to keep in mind that if you choose ever kind of sports at a time when the other decision would be go to church, would be something spiritual. Have those conversations. Look for ways to make that time. To be intentional about redeeming requirements in church, make sure you're there on Wednesday. Then listen to the sermon on the way. Make time to carve out so that your kids know, yes, we're doing this, but God is still more. But mostly just pray about it. And I would say let the bar be God convincing you that it's right to do versus just looking for God to tell you. I think it's the default in these situations should always be God first. And whatever that looks like. And I do think that I don't want to say that God will never lead someone to make a choice that would mean you miss church on some Sundays. God could do that. But I think that would probably, my guess would be that's more the exception than the rule. And I just would hope that everyone who makes that choice is praying about it, because I think that's the I think that's the danger of it, when we kind of run the risk of teaching our kids through our actions that say church is important until it comes into conflict with something. And I think sports have a unique ability to, especially for passion. So that would be my encouragement, is just to make sure that you're praying through, that it's a conversation between you and your spouse, and even involve your local church. And make sure that if you whatever choice you're making, it's grounded.
Yeah. Oh, that's so good, Ryan. Did you guys run into this as you were coming up through your teen years? I know you're not there yet with your kids, but have you run into this in some way?
Ran into it some growing up. I mean, we're not there yet. Our girls are young, so it's something to think about. I just kind of keep coming back to, it's a balance, just like almost anything else in our lives. And also, if you are intentional as a family, as mom and dad, to carve out rhythms and priorities, no matter what comes in the face of that, this is what we do. This is how we do it. This is what we are about. And nothing gets in the way of that. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't get flexible. You can't be flexible, because I don't think the answer is also to not let your kids be involved in sports because maybe this sport will conflict with something on Sunday from time to time. My goodness, I think we can all say that we learned the value of hard work, teamwork in action, being able to take criticism from a coach and being able to apply it, being humble in victory, finding joy and a way to work on it in defeat. The life lessons in sports can last for a lifetime. So you don't want to rob your kids of that either. But at the same time, that can't become your religion. Very quickly, it can become your religion. So it's a balance.
Yeah, that's great. Great insight. Connor, thoughts?
Yeah, I fully agree with that. I'm thinking about a lot of the professional athletes. They play on Sundays, right?
Yeah.
In fact, Scottie Scheffler, who we talked about at the beginning of this podcast, he golfs every week from Thursday to Sunday in tournaments.
He hopes to be playing on. Yeah, he wants to be playing on Sunday.
He almost always is.
That's the whole thing there. But he's still, he is intentional in his faith. There are other ways to apply faith and all of that. But I do remember as a kid, there was only one time, because I did not really play. Like I said, I was not a great athlete. But there was one time my game got delayed from Saturday to Sunday for weather purposes. And I remember my parents were like, well, you're not going to get there until the second half because we're going to church. And I was like, come on. So I went to church in my jersey. And they dropped me off at the game as soon as they could. But that was the way it was. And I think it's different. It's like you're saying, Ryan, you got to pray through this, figure this out for your family and for your kids, what's best. But you never know when God is also crafting an incredible talent for these individuals. Like your kids, are they actually on a path to use this as a platform in some way for the gospel? Like Scottie Scheffler, like a bunch of athletes,
And then maybe if they're not, maybe you could scale back a little bit. Maybe if your kid's not that good, maybe you should get them to church.
Yeah. I think everything you said, Micah, earlier about don't let it become the religion. I'd say this is just about sports fandom in general for those of us who don't play sports.
Or really
anymore.
anything.
Really anything. Like if you are getting so emotionally invested in a sports team or a game specifically that it's affecting your thinking process, then it's hitting your faith, right?
Yeah.
Faith in God is number one. You should not be letting anything get you that riled up. Just like you should not be letting anything else like sports. It could be something else. It could be your job. It could be whatever it is in your day-to-day week. Whatever it is, it should not be taking precedent over the Lord. That's ultimately what it comes down to.
Yeah, great call out. It makes me think of some of the things my pastor taught me. He would talk and preach at times about, hey, less newspaper, more Bible. And if you know a whole bunch of sports stats, but you don't know very many Bible verses, there might be an issue for you as a believer that you might want to think about and talk about, right?
But that's none of us, though.
That's none of us, yeah.
We're good.
But
we're good to go.
we're going to close here in a minute with a verse that we were talking about offline that Ryan's going to share with us. But really some great things to think about and something we should call out. Many of the professional sports, many of the college sports and teams, they have faith opportunities for their athletes that are built into the rhythms of the way that their sports work. I have a good friend who's connected to our ministry some, who has been the chaplain for a number of years for one of the major college football teams. And he has had enormous opportunities to share his faith and to pour into college athletes who may know almost nothing about Christianity, or they don't know how to live out their faith as young men in the environment. And so he's had an opportunity to disciple them and to be a part of that, because this university and that football coach said, we're going to have a chaplain and you don't have to participate, but it's here if you want to participate. I have another really good friend of mine who helped lead our church. His daughter was a really great soccer player. She went on to play college soccer on a scholarship, and she had a practice that was happening every Wednesday night, so she couldn't be in our youth program. So he said to her, hey, you're going to have to go find a church in the area that has a student ministry that happens on Tuesday night or Thursday night, because you need to be a part of something like this. She went and did that. And then, other stories of her and others who look for ways to even in an early age, turn those platforms into platforms to share and show their faith. And like you said, Micah, a moment ago, in the way that you lose, an incredible opportunity to show your faith, and when you win. All of that is a way to live out your faith, even if it doesn't always happen exactly the way we at least think it used to happen before the world didn't gather up the calendar the way the world gathers up the calendar now, with little to no respect for what people of faith, people in churches may be doing. Ryan, you had a great verse that I thought might be a good capstone for our conversation today. You want to share that with us?
Yeah, I think it really goes back to what you're saying. And it's the second half of that verse I mentioned earlier from Paul, where he says, all things are lawful for me, but not all things are helpful. He follows that up by saying, all things are lawful for me, but I will not be dominated by them. And I think as we think about just with which you're passionate about, they can take over your life. And we were talking earlier about how today was we started the conversation by talking about how today is one of the darkest days in the sports calendar because there's nothing going on. And it's
darkest days.
Maybe it's the brightest day.
No,
no,
it's a dark day.
But to some extent, just turning on the TV, looking through, and not having any sports to watch, that is something that creates sadness. Maybe an indication that sports are a little too important. Yeah. And I think all of us kind of have that. And if you're not a huge fan of sports, still stuck it out to the end of the conversation. First off, but secondly, all of us have something in our life that Satan will use to try and dominate us and keep us away from God. And I think that's just, whether it's sports or politics or whatever it may be in your life, just be aware of what that is. Ask the Holy Spirit to let you know what it is. And then make sure that you understand that just because it's not inherently bad does not mean, and doesn't mean that it's something that God wants to have in the future. Really kind of take that to God. And God, is there anything in my life that threatens to kick you off your throne as my top priority? And then listen, and whatever He shows you, put that into account when you're thinking about how you're going to spend your time, spend your energy, how you spend your time.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, God really is the only thing that's
Yeah. I don't think we can end anywhere better than that, Ryan. Thanks for that. And guys, thanks. Connor, Micah, thanks for being a part of the conversation. You can catch Connor and Micah on Culture Brief. And we hope that this conversation has been helpful and useful to you. If it has, please rate, review us, share this with others so that they can find the Denison Forum podcast. And we look forward to seeing you next time and for our next conversation. God bless you. We'll see you soon.
See ya.